Today on That's My Take. What am I doing? This is the Super Bowl. I need to make this more epic somehow. You know what? Just bear with me 1 second, please. You know what? I got it. Today on That's My Take. A special guest comes onto the show with your host with the least to preview what some are calling an epic battle, but most are calling it the least anticipated match in Super Bowl history. The irritating force collides with the unlikable object, and unfortunately, there must be a winner. But thankfully, there must be a loser. But at the end of the day, no matter who wins, America loses. So it is time to preview Super Bowl 59 on That's My Take.
Coming to you from this undisclosed location, it's the That's My Take podcast with Aiden Rouse.
Hello, my beautiful people, and welcome to the That's My Take podcast, the only podcast featuring a host who's going to try everything in his power to make the most uninteresting Super Bowl ever interesting. I'm your host, Aiden. My guests may never believe, but man, I gotta try, Rouse. And the countdown is on, ladies and gentlemen. Super Bowl 59 is almost here, and obviously, with it being the Super Bowl, it's the big game for a reason. And covering it and previewing it is obviously one of the top things I want to do. So, but again, this is the big game, so I got to find a way to make this even bigger. It can't just be me. So I decided to enlist some help. And introducing my first ever guest today, he is one of the biggest NFL content creators on YouTube, boasting over 615,000 subscribers and counting. His repertoire includes everything from haters guides, deep dives, and roasts of NFL teams and players, and of course his signature series, This Week in Sports Ball. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only UrinatingTree. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right, man. All I'm going to say is the snow's melting in Pittsburgh. Nothing has really gone too crazy around here. We're sitting here delving in the endless mediocrity of Steeler football. There's a lot of salt coming from everywhere in the NFL world, but as I'm always going to say, it's the Super Bowl nobody wants, but what can you do? Maybe it's the Super Bowl we deserve. I couldn't tell you.
Maybe hope for a black hole to open up.
Oh yeah, I'm hearing meteor or nuke. Maybe one of those things. I'm hearing that. Maybe Bane will make a special appearance. Have you ever seen that, man? The only survivor will be Hines Ward.
Oh man,
which is hilarious because Hines Ward was never noticed a speedster, and he's sitting in the kick return.
Who was the speedster during those times? Was it no.
Probably? I'm trying to think. Probably Willie Parker. Probably would be him.
Oh, okay. But I mean, yeah, Super Bowl 59 is almost here. Both of us not excited for it at all, but I mean, it should be a good game, though. I feel like it.
I think so. I mean, if we're talking about both teams, I mean, you're dealing with the modern version of the Patriots. They're very efficient, cerebral, very intelligent, especially with their defensive blitz packages in the fourth quarter, versus the old Eagles, probably one of the best running teams in football. Talking about them, Jalen Hurts, he's coming back to relative full strength. Saquon Barkley finally behind an incredible offensive line. And he finally have that. He has 2,000 yards regular season. He's just bursting through holes left and right. And a defense that's made a complete 180 in that time. So I think it should be a very interesting matchup, although nobody wants to see it.
Well, we do got a lot to get into, so let's just jump right into it. It's time for us to preview Super Bowl 59. Well, before we get into the Super Bowl, I always like to point out context and what happened to get to the point that we're at. So I think with that, let's go over all the teams that have been eliminated from the NFL playoffs. Let's just go in order. Starting off, LA Chargers. Oh, man, I thought this was different, but I learned one thing very long ago. You never trust the Chargers.
I thought they were going to win this one. I did not like Houston coming into the playoffs, especially with their bad offensive line and just their offensive struggles. I mean, they were doing all right, and then the wheels just completely fell off. I'm still blaming the dirty bubble kidnapping Jim Harbaugh. It was literally at that moment. The next play, Justin Herbert threw a really bad pick, and the game went downhill from there. I'm not joking. Look that up. I think the thing there is that it's just like everything unraveled. Like, you don't expect Justin Herbert, who's only thrown 3 interceptions all year, to throw 4 in a single game. You don't expect everything to just fall apart in this. The Texans defense to just feast. And
especially with Jim Harbaugh at the helm. He's not the type of person to really have a team collapse like that in an instant.
No, not at all. I know the thing too. It's like the Chargers did overperform, especially for their talent level. I think they're going to need a lot more in there. Khalil Mack is coming back, but the same thing too. It's that, I mean, a structure can only get you so far if you don't have the talent, and Houston's talent just bulldozed, even for their limitations and their injuries.
I absolutely agree. And Justin Herbert, we'll leave it off at this. Is Justin Herbert really helping his social media quarterback case with this?
Oh, Emmanuel Acho ran a victory lap. And I'm like, oh, really? Really, dude? He's more or less becoming the Phillip Rivers and the Dan Fouts before him, like the cursed quarterback who can't find a way to win the big game.
And then after the Chargers game was the Steelers. They suffered a pretty bad loss against the Ravens. We're going to see the salt mines get occupied very quickly here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Steelers is it's another massive collapse. That stretch between Kansas City, Philadelphia, and Baltimore at the end of the regular season, it was their true test, and they failed. And then the Cincinnati game happened. I'm like, yeah, they're going to get blown out. And the score doesn't know justice. They gave up almost 300 yards in the ground. They gave up 225 yards after contact. I saw a team that quit. That was the real problem there. They gave up. There was just like they were looking forward to vacations. And yeah, and the worst part is that nothing's going to change, even though it's another humiliation. And you haven't won a playoff game in 8 years. So it's, I mean, like, why should I be excited about this team if you're not going to learn anything from what's happening? Because it seems like the rest of the league has. The only people that haven't are the Steelers. And Baltimore, I mean, they finally broke their curse against the Steelers. They just couldn't beat them for whatever reason. And they just walloped us. And I mean, walloped.
I mean, it feels like a tale as old as time, where the Steelers get off to a really hot start, they collapse, and then by the end of the season, they're just limping and have to put out their misery. But I mean, who do you go with it? You personally, if you had the choice, do you go with Fields or Russell Wilson?
I think the right option would probably be Fields, but I mean, it depends how much Wilson wants, because I mean, considering Russell Wilson, I don't know where else he starts. Does he go back to Oakland and try going for a timeshare with AOC? I don't think he's going to want that, even if Pete Carroll is going to be coming back. I think the real thing is there's no real option for him. So I think he does come back, maybe 20, 25 million a year.
All right, let's move on to my Denver Broncos. I mean, we finally got a Bo Nix to Troy Franklin deep ball connection. It just came at the cost of everyone else being able to catch. So I can't be mad at the outcome just because it was what I expected, but it still feels a little bit disappointing to go out that way. And
the thing with Denver is we all expected like the Broncos to get blown out. The main thing is nobody expected them to be here. The fact that they overcame all the issues they had to make up the playoffs, it's impressive. I'm not going to lie about that. Real question there, it's more or less like you need more to beat the Bills of the world. So that means getting a premium running back, maybe getting another wide receiver or two. I'd say your offensive line's doing all right. You want to see what you have in Bo Nix. Hopefully there's no regression there. I know the thing there with your defense, you might need another piece or two, but otherwise, like your key is going to be finding a bell cow running back and maybe a solid wide receiver, one or two. That's going to be what Denver's goals are for this offseason.
The good news with that is that the tight end and running back classes in the draft are really good. So I see us probably getting Tyler Warren out of Penn State, and
ooh, that would be a big get for you guys.
Yeah. And then for running back, maybe Cam Scadaboo or some guy someone else in the second round. Maybe we go out and get Najee Harris as like a bridge back, and we try to find like a higher level one.
Mm-hmm. But you could probably do a platoon back. You could probably have Najee as a power back, and then maybe do like a elusive back in the second or third round. Maybe is like a sort of like a sandwich type.
I mean, we have Jaleel McLaughlin to be that elusive guy, but
yeah. Javonte Williams, he just hasn't been the same since the injury, unfortunately. He was looking pretty promising, too.
Oh, yeah, he's cooked, and I hate to say that because I loved watching him, but...
Yeah.
All right, next up, Green Bay Packers. was definitely a regression to say the least, but I don't know. I can't give him. Jordan Love is the proved to be the Toyota-thon merchant, so not much.
Toyota-thon. I think the thing with Green Bay, it's just they picked a bad time. I mean, you're in a division with two 14-win teams. Not to mention Jordan Love has had a bit of like an up and down year in terms of his like, okay, he can be really good or he'd regress. He'd had some injuries as well. So Green Bay, I don't know what they do from here. I know Detroit's going to be there for as long as they are. I don't know if Minnesota's going to keep that up again. But at the same time, I mean, maybe there's the slight off chance Chicago could finally get it together. Who knows? I think question is their pass rush hasn't been ideal. Rashawn Gary took a while to emerge. Lucas Van Ness hasn't been what they thought he would be yet. They're hoping for that jump, especially as more of a backup role. But I know for Green Bay's sake, I mean, they got to fix their corner issues. I mean, Jair Alexander might have played his last game as a Packer, and they got to replace him.
And then next up, we got the Bucks. Way to waste an MVP level season. Oh my God, that was abhorrent.
It's the Todd Bowles special, man. I mean, really great coordinator. He is a terrible head coach. And the problem is, like, he kind of showed there, like they played not to lose. And what really actually killed them was that fumble by McMillan on the toss by Baker. And I think that's what did him in, because Washington was content with just going for fourth down repeatedly. They botched a snap on a 3rd and short, which led to the play getting blown up. And Kalijah Cansey grabbed the towel of Jaden Daniels, which is just and they end with the Chiefs doink through the post. It's like, oh man, I don't know if it's like their peak or a what if season. That's the question for Tampa Bay, because they had a lot of injuries on that defense, which I thought was eventually going to take them out.
I wouldn't say it's quite their peak season. I still think there's room for them to grow. It's just how much are we going to be able to grow with Lovie Smith, with Howie Smith still at the helm for them.
You are either lying or you're stupid. I'm stupid.
And how much can you? I guess another question is, how much can you get out of Baker? Because we know how up and down he can tend to get. Yeah. So,
and he's also down another offensive coordinator. Liam Cohen's going to Jacksonville, so they have to figure that out as well.
I'm not sure how to feel about that hire, because, like, I mean,
it's a weird hire because he's never been a head coach. And I just don't know, because like Jacksonville is like a weird thing. I mean, they should build statues of him anyway for finally getting rid of Trent Baalke. That's just how I feel. But the question is, he's not even the worst hire in this cycle. It's Brian Schottenheimer in Dallas and whomever New Orleans can convince to coach that scrap heap. Because no one wants to coach in New Orleans. Everyone's just saying, I'm good. Yeah. Joe Brady, you want to coach? I'm good. Hey, Cliff, want to coach? I'm good.
You have nothing to work with in New Orleans, though. I will say that.
Aging injury-prone roster, cap hell. You're probably going to be blowing it up in a few years. Mickey Loomis is still your GM. He's not going anywhere, and I wouldn't either.
It's a tough situation for whoever's joining that team. But again, back to the Bucks. I mean, I don't know. Where do you think do you try to make some all-in splashes this year, or do you try to? I mean, you probably do, but it's a
Tampa Bay. Maybe. I mean, the thing is, I don't know what you can really upgrade from there. Your defense is pretty stout. Question is, Chris Godwin's going to have to be replaced. You'll probably take care of that in the draft, because Mike Evans, I mean, as awesome as he is, as much of a future Hall of Famer as he is, he's getting up there in age. You already have your running back core. Bucky Irving looks pretty solid. Your offensive line's been doing all right, but yeah, we'll see about that.
All right, next up, the Vikings. I have never in my life in like 2 years, or I guess 3 years now, I've never seen someone lose millions of dollars like that Sam Darnold did. That is unbelievable.
He ran himself out of town, which is a shame, because it was an incredible feel-good story, and then he's gone back to a meme in 2 weeks straight. Yeah, I mean, the lights were too bright. He went from a 4-year, $40 million a year deal with about $100 million guaranteed to 20 3-year, 25 to 30 million with 40 to 50 million guaranteed. And the question is, I mean, there'll be teams that are going to get him as a starter. He'll find a role, but I mean, he had his chance, and the lights were too bright. I mean, the Rams feasted on him. They exposed their weaknesses, and Darnold, it's the Carson Wentz route. He ran himself out of town. I mean, they're going to go with McCarthy.
Then next up, we got Houston, who roughing the passer, unnecessary roughnesses, but they just ran into a better team, in my opinion. They weren't, honestly, I'd argue they weren't even really supposed to be in Houston. I mean, in Kansas City.
I mean, this is one where everyone was blaming the refs for this one, but the refs didn't play special teams or play offensive line. Texans' offensive line was terrible all year, and they got pretty much just wrecked throughout the entirety of the game. C.J. Stroud, he had a regression. He had a sophomore slump, so you're hoping he can bounce back to his elite level as a rookie. Problem is, he doesn't do well against pressure of the blitz, and people saw that. It's like, blitz him, go. And it really showed its ugly face. The offense couldn't do anything without Joe Mixon. And Bobby Slowick, I mean, you talk about downfalls. That guy was getting head coaching interviews last year. They're talking about him being a hot coaching prospect. He got canned because of this year. And it's justified. A lot of Texans fans were complaining about Slowick and his play calling. It's very vanilla. It lost its luster. And so I didn't really bat an eyelash on that firing.
Next up, the Lions. I thought this was the year. But Jared Goff, as you said, turned into Jared Goof.
Mm-hmm. And the thing too, it's that the Lions defense, it was just battered by injury all year. It was going to be a matter of time before they got injured. I thought it would have been in the championship game. But Washington and Jaden Daniels they went ham, and they were down to just a ragtag group. They just couldn't keep it together. And the problem is, what really did them in was that 3rd and 1. They had a chance to run the ball in. I know Montgomery, that he should have never been back. He wasn't the same as he was. But the thing, too, it's that they ran like a play-action pass, forced a fumble, and that changed the momentum of the game, and they were trying to chase like that ever since. They weren't able to play their game, and that's what truly did them in. And then Ben Johnson, there were a bunch of allegations from Detroit saying that he was more interested in his interviews than game planning for the game. So I don't know how true that is, but, I mean, a couple days later, he's the Bears head coach.
That would be a pretty concerning if there's any level of truth to that, that's pretty concerning. And I mean, I don't know. Do you feel like this was the year for the Lions, and they're kind of just not going to really get to this point again, or do you think there's a chance that they bounce back and manage to find themselves back here?
I mean, I think they'll be back. Question is, can they replace the coordinating job that Glenn and Johnson did? Because Dan Campbell's more of like a CEO type. He's not really one to really delve into X's and O's. Because if he can replace them, he'll be fine. If not, I mean, there may be some struggles.
I mean, I hope they can be back. I mean, my biggest issue right now is kind of with Jared. I mean, just because of the turnovers, Jared Goff, I feel like he's just kind of catapulted himself back into that. People are questioning whether or not he's truly good enough, and that's really been where he's been his entire career.
That pass before half was brutal. I'm just sitting there like, dude, come on.
You can't make mistakes like that as a
not at all. Anymore. Not at all.
Next up, we got the Ravens. I mean, I am so sick and tired of watching the Ravens lose games in like the exact same way over and over again.
Exactly. I mean, I see it all the time. I mean, that's why I don't have faith in them in January, because they do this at least 4 or 5 times a year in the regular season. It happened against the Steelers all the time. They lose to like a random team, Jameis Winston-led Browns, the Raiders they lost to earlier in the year. I'm like, dude, what are we doing here? You have Derrick Henry and you're not using him in key situations? Come on. Like, Derrick Henry rumbles over people left and right. It was just an uncharacteristically bad game for Mark Andrews, and that might be his last game as a Raven. I mean, they're probably going to run him out of town as well, because he's got I think something like a $5 million cap penalty, and he's getting paid $15 million salary cap. You have Isaiah Likely, you do the math. So I think that might be his final game there. Not to mention, I mean, the stuff coming out about Justin Tucker, who, I mean, it doesn't look good. I mean,
don't wanna
he
get
might
into that.
be, yeah, no comment. I would say about that that was probably your best shot. And I hate to say it, but like the question is, I mean, Lamar should be thanking his lucky stars for those Andrew issues because they'd be focusing on his first half. Otherwise, like it was dark.
I mean, it's a guy. I mean, I always made the meme that it took him what 4 or 5 years to win as many playoff games as Tim Tebow, and then it took him another like 6, and then took him 6 to win more.
Yep.
At what point do people just start saying this guy can't win in the playoffs? I mean, I know there's some stuff that wasn't his fault. It's not his fault that the Ravens coaches decided to not run the ball in the AFC title game last year. And I get that, hey, you know what? You could have won the game if it wasn't for the Mark Andrews drop. But at what point are people just like, this dude can't play in the playoffs?
Well, the comparison for me has always been Michael Vick, like electrifying athlete, great arm. I mean, he's more accurate than Michael Vick. But at the same time, it's just the speed and the power and the transformative nature of his play. But you know who else had trouble in the playoffs? Michael Vick. So, I mean, it's kind of the same boat, and it's just like you're in that same like wheel because I mean, the John Harbaugh era has gotten stale, but they're not going to move on from him.
He's coach for life there, and Lamar's probably quarterback for life there, barring any sort of mishap. But and I don't think this is a Mike Vick situation where like, hey, at least with Vick, he went to the Eagles and that was probably his best shot to win something.
2010 Vick, that was peak Vick.
Yeah. I don't see that kind of like late bloomer type of thing happening because I don't trust him enough from the pocket to like genuinely say when his athleticism is deteriorating that he'll be good enough of a passer in the pocket. Title games, Commanders. Love the run. Love the one of the best runs I've seen. Jalen Daniels probably cemented himself as probably the best rookie quarterback ever, but he just kind of ran out of gas at the worst time.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the clock struck midnight. They did play over their heads. It's a great year. I mean, at the best case scenario, Dan Snyder seething in England because that ESPN article came out. I'm like, good. You don't get to enjoy this, Dan.
Snyder loses.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's the best possible outcome. The other one would be bankruptcy, but unfortunately, I don't think that happening. No. But I mean, the Eagles were just the better team. I mean, the fact is, like, you needed to be perfect against them, and you fumble it 3 times. So that's gonna hurt anybody.
Finally, the Bills. We talked about it earlier. My big thing was, again, you're playing a team like the Chiefs. You have to be perfect. They made way too many mistakes.
I mean, as I said, it's just a situation where Buffalo's just not good enough to beat them. I know Josh Allen's been masking a lot of issues. I know they start slow in first halves, and they also, I mean, their defense has been iffy. And once they lost Christian Benford to concussion, it was lights out. Kyer Elam, that dude could not cover a bench spread. It's bad. And they just picked on him all game long. It's just find where Kyer Elam is. Yep, throw it. And I mean, you can make arguments about ref ball, but at the same time, it's just Kansas City's just better. Yeah, I hate to say it.
They have their number, and it's just
it's like the Steelers against New England. I mean, it's just you can't beat them when it matters.
Yeah, I mean, you can beat them in the regular season all you want. It doesn't matter. You gotta beat them in the playoffs, and I kind of see them as the modern day Steelers when they were winning Super Bowls. As if they do win a Super Bowl, it's going to be when they don't run it. It's going to be in the one instance
exactly.
They don't run against.
Or I mean, how long does Josh Allen last with the style of play? He plays a very physical style. Yeah, I'm just worried his body breaks down sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Super Bowl. So on February 9th, 2025 in Louisiana in the Superdome, we will see the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 59. The irritating force versus the unlikable object, if you will. So Let's talk about the AFC champions first. The Kansas City Chiefs. Tree, I'll let you have the first swing at this.
Absolutely. I mean, with the Kansas City Chiefs, hold on. There's a flag on the play. The allegations of the rigging have come far and wide, especially in the Dallas game when that roughing the passer called. Main thing there, they're going to call that every time, especially when telling the refs are zero tolerance towards that. But the main thing too, the Bills game, if they even get a whiff of it, everyone's saying it's rigged. Which it's gone a 180. It's gone from like annoying to I kind of hope they do just for the endless salt coming out of it. The reality is they're a well-constructed, well-trained team. I mean, they are a cerebral group. Patrick Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He doesn't really have much around him. Pacheco's been injured for most of the year. They have Kareem Hunt, who's back getting his revenge tour, doing a lot of short yardage gains, more of their like change of pace running back. Hollywood Brown's been injured most of the year, hasn't really done that much. DeAndre Hopkins, Nuke Hopkins. He's not the same as he was. He could still fill a role. Juju Smith-Schuster still has a big role in the offense. Travis Kelce, this might be his last ride. We're being honest here. Because, first ballot Hall of Famer. How do you feel about that might be his last one there?
If he wins, I do believe it will be his last. But, I agree with you. It's just, I feel the Chiefs are just a machine. And, like, in the AFC title game, I saw people, obviously, the Xavier Worthy catch probably should have been ruled a catch, but it's more the quarterback.
Well, that was going to be a penalty anyway. It would have been a first down for the Chiefs because that was ruled like a defensive holding, if I remember correctly. It would have been a 20-yard swing, but still.
But it's also the Josh Allen first down that wasn't called. I saw a lot of people complain about that. I felt like it was circumstantial at best because, like, on the people are saying, like, look at the broadcast angle. It's a first down, but like,
it's not the broadcast angle. I can't see the ball. And the problem is, if you can't see the ball, it's going to be inconclusive. And it would have been either way. If they ruled it a first down, it would have been a first down. If they rolled it short, it would have been short. That's the main thing. It's one of those things where it's like, it's where they spot it. They're always going to err on the side of the official on the field. And that's usually for any call in any sport, if we're being completely honest here. If they, as I said, it's just one of those tickle things in the air. If the Bills had rolled it short, everyone would be cheering, and we'd be like, Chiefs fans would be like calling hypocrisy. Or it'd be a situation like now where the rigged allegations are coming out left and right.
Yeah, but again, the Chiefs are nothing short of a machine, in my opinion. You don't get off to the start you do. You don't only lose 2 games, and one of those was in a picture definition of a meaningless game. If you aren't, they're a machine. There's no other way to put it. They like. And quite frankly, I think they might be the most well-coached team I've ever seen. Like, people say it's devil magic. Is it? Maybe. If there's something Taylor Swift is doing?
Partially. In certain situations, you can argue is dark magic and sorcery. Binging off, shanking a goal off the upright to win a game. Aiden O'Connell botching a snap to win a game. The toe off the end zone. Mike Tomlin thinks he's a master of the dark arts. No. Andy Reid has been studying that all summer long. And it's just coming back to like, okay, I'm just sitting there like in the Raiders game. Everyone's saying, oh, the Raiders are going to win. The Raiders are going to win. I'm like, yeah, Chiefs are going to win this one. And it's like fumble, like, yeah, figures. It's just like I expected.
Sometimes you have. Oh, yeah. You go.
All right. Yeah, but definitely. The main thing that's always impressed me with the Chiefs, you might agree with this, it's been their defense, especially in fourth quarter and in the clutch. Spagnuolo is just Eli's perfect like blitz patches. His rushes 5 or 6. He doesn't really leave anything to chance, and he like leaves people startled out of their feet. Look at Josh Allen on that 4th and 15.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember if you've seen Ben Solak, he's talking about, all you need to do is throw that check down to Khalil Shakir. No. You're not with 2 defenders screaming in your face. If he has no pressure, he probably throws to his check down. But at that point, just got to heap it up. It happened against Houston as well. I think 5 of those 6 sacks came in the fourth quarter. He knows how to dial up when needed. He knows how to just pick apart every potential weakness of a squad, including their blocking packages. So that's where Philly's going to have to be careful. I know they don't have many like names per se. Their real names are Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie, maybe Justin Reed. But most of them are just a chorus of just unsung heroes. And that's really what you're coming down to. The only real loss they had, I believe, was Willie Gay. But otherwise, I mean, it's pretty much the same team as we had last year. I think Jalen Watson's back because I know he was injured most of last year.
Yeah, this defense is such a this defense. Another thing that also stands out to me is the coaching. The coaching has a level of attention to detail that I haven't seen in many other coaches. Like I remember the Bronco game where they got the blocked field goal to win the game. Like that was because they noticed the left guard like was constantly just getting pancaked every time he lined up the block. So they're just like, let's crowd the left guard, stack the box, and then especially since that kick is going to be going left, you got a chance at that. And then we have the offense, which is even more unlikable.
It's annoying because the thing is they're not a great offense. They're more mid-tier, but it's just Mahomes just working out a magic. And then I have to throw the flag out. I'm sorry, because this is just how everyone says about the Chiefs. But I mean, at the same time, what can you do? I mean, it's just as long as Mahomes is there, they're going to be a threat.
Oh, absolutely. Travis Kelce, definitely not what he once was. Again, this could very well be his last game, but you have a decent receiving core with you as well. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, again, not what he once was, but he's very serviceable in his role. Xavier Worthy, I like to see. I mean, I'm a Texans fan, so I loved seeing Worthy go out and ball out. But
yeah,
it just makes me wonder what would this offense look like if they legitimately had a number one receiver? If they had like a legit number one receiver like they had in Tyreek Hill with now. Because like I think the big difference between those teams with Hill and Mahomes now is that Mahomes, I feel like losing Tyreek Hill, it made him really have to be more careful with the football because now he can't just, chuck it up, go long hill, and
oh no, they've become very Patriots-like in the way they run their offense. They eat a lot of clock. They don't really do a lot of runs. They just use short passes as runs. Same as the Patriots. Get the ball out quick, fast, find the seams, first read, boom, inside slant, boom. I mean, every once in a while they'll throw a deep ball, but for the most part, it's usually just a very basic, low risk, low outcome offense. But if you keep burning 4 or 5 yards in attempts, you keep that going, guess what? You're going to get to the red zone. You're going to get points.
Absolutely. Again, and again, that's where I've been the most impressed with Mahomes is the flawless execution of it. Because like last year, it felt like the offense was considerably worse. But that was probably also because they didn't have many weapons they didn't have a
receiving core was even worse.
Oh yeah,
because they were down to McCole Hardman, Kadarius Toney, and Juju Smith-Schuster.
And that's not for 31 other quarterbacks. You're probably not even making the playoffs with that.
Oh no. I mean, if you don't have that defense, you're probably a 6-win team.
Oh yeah. I mean, but again, that's the magic of Mahomes, and it's just it comes back to my point of you don't have to like it, but you have to acknowledge it. The Chiefs they're, I guess, the NFL equivalent of Roman Reigns if you watch WWE at all, but they know how to win. They know what they need to do to win, and they have the coaches that can absolutely do that.
They get the right pushes. That's absolutely the main thing.
But then we have a familiar foe emerging from the shadows, but they're and they have an ace up their sleeve this time. We're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, a team which I didn't even think they were going to make the playoffs. I thought they were going to miss the playoffs and Nick Sirianni was going to get fired because I lost that much faith in them. But Saquon picked a very good year to have the best year of his career. He has been the driving force behind the Eagles going to the Super Bowl.
I know the thing there, it's that Saquon has been the revelation this offense is needed. I know they've had good running backs in the past. DeAndre Swift's been pretty good. As I said, they have, Kenneth Gainwell has been a solid piece. They've had Jay Ajayi before injuries unfortunately derailed him, and also a few others too. But I know the thing there with Saquon is that he's just behind a really elite offensive line. Even without Jason Kelce, he just goes. And I mean, he's back to what he was at Penn State. And if you saw him at Penn State, he was just flying, bursting through holes. It's the same thing. Even with the injuries, this is what we were hoping for with Saquon. And I think this is like the revelation they've needed because their passing the offense has not been that good. There have been some struggles in that regard. I know Philly, the Eagles, they were looking really suspect early in the first half of the year. And I mean, I was in the same boat. I mean, Sirianni was on the threat of being fired, especially after last year's collapse. I'm not a Sirianni fan, but at the end of the day, it's just the talent just overcomes everything. I mean, Jalen's able to dial up a two-headed offense when needed be. Saquon is just going ham. You have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith in that offense, too. And not to mention Dallas Goedert, who's been a really good safety valve and probably one of the best offensive lines in football. That, I mean, even after losing Jason Kelsey, hasn't skipped a beat. You still have Cam Jurgens, who's come in pretty flawlessly. Landon Dickerson has been, pretty solid. I hope he's able to recover from that injury. I know he was a little banged up in the championship game, but I mean, otherwise, it's plug and play, next man up. I mean, as any real good team there. I mean, they were dominating with Tanner McKee under center.
Oh my God. I totally forgot that.
Most efficient quarterback in football, baby.
Oh man. Yeah, the Chiefs. Why did I say the Chiefs? The Eagles are in their. I mean, we saw it with the Bengals when they made the Super Bowl like 2 years ago, but it's a classic case of like, if you have talent on offense, you can overcome bad coaching.
Exactly. Use it. And the Eagles use it.
And that's exactly what makes it so scary to watch them play. Because, I mean, again, the passing game hasn't been the passing game hasn't been all that great, but you still have reliable guys that you can get the ball to when you need them to. AJ Brown, I love the trade.
Oh yeah, and dude, it's been even worse for Tennessee. Treylon Burks has become nothing.
Oh my God.
So it's one of the most lopsided trades in football's recent history. And we all kind of knew it at the time. It's just been even worse than we thought.
And then Devontae Smith, I mean, he won a Heisman for a reason. He's a very good receiver.
Oh yeah. I mean, they've nailed a lot of their picks, especially over the last couple of years. I mean, and we haven't even got to the defensive side of the ball, but they've rehabilitated that. They've done a complete 180 since last year when they were just getting wrecked left and right. They had a battered secondary, linebacking core. You had washed up Shaq Leonard and Zach Cunningham playing linebacker, and it was bad to watch.
I guess let's talk about that defense. I mean,
yep.
A revitalized group, especially from last year and the end of 2 years ago when they were getting battered, when they were getting just diced up by most of those elite offenses. How about that revitalization of Philadelphia's defense?
I mean, the thing too, main key there has been their linebacking and secondary cores. Mickey Loomis is pretty much one of the greatest benefactors to Philadelphia I've ever seen. They have not only been able to gift them Jalen Carter, who is an absolute wrecker on that defensive front. I was going to say the S-bomb, but I know everything going on there. But I mean, that's pretty much what he is. He destroys offensive lines. And then Zach Bond, who is a free agent, able to go. He's a first team All-Pro. I mean, he's been incredible. He's had probably the biggest breakout of anyone on the defensive side in the NFL. And not to mention their secondary, Quintanamo Bay, Quinion Mitchell has been an absolute godsend for that secondary. Cooper DeJean has been really good. There's still a big play Slay. I mean, he's playing CB2, CB3. You have safeties. I mean, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's been pretty solid. Reed Blankenship. And not just that, I mean, you've assembled pretty much the Georgia national championship team as well as several other elite talents. And I think that's with a Vic Fangio defense. And I know you kind of saw that in Denver as well with his defenses. I mean, he knows how to construct really good units.
They were with my experience from Vic Fangio defenses, they're very bend but don't break.
Exactly.
And we saw a lot of that.
It's kind of been Philly.
Yeah, it's been Philly a lot, and that's what I've come to expect from Vic Fangio. And he credit to him. I thought he was going to be cooked after his stint in Miami. And did he come to Philly this year, or was it last year?
Yeah, he came this year. I know he resigned from Miami last year because there was remember with Miami's defense, they were wrecked by injury. They had lost both their edge rushers. I think they had lost Jalen Ramsey for a good bit as well. And not to mention they were limping into the playoffs because of, I think, I believe Tua he wasn't injured, but they had collapsed. And then the Chiefs game happened, and Miami just does not do well in the cold. Like, they just don't. And they don't do well against opponents over 500. And then I think there was an argument there. They left, and Miami's had to completely overhaul their defense to mixed results.
And I mean, I feel like it's also important to point out this stat. Vic Fangio, to my knowledge, in recent memory, has not been able to beat Patrick Mahomes at all. He never beat him when he was in Denver, never beat him in Miami. I don't think he hasn't beaten him in Philly because they haven't played yet, but that's good. But I mean, with that in mind, how do you think that defense matches up with that Kansas City offense that just seems to know that just seems to get the job done whenever they need to?
Yep, you are correct. He is 8-0 against Vic Fangio. I just found a tweet about that. So, I mean, it's going to be a tough call, but I'm mentioning, like, the main thing is got to find a way to control Mahomes. And I think that's where Zach Bond's going to come in. I think he's going to be playing a heavy QB spy, making sure he isn't able to really dance and move around the pocket. I think that's going to be your play, especially since Nakobe Dean's out for the year, unfortunately. And I think that's going to hurt a little bit. But at the same time, I think he wasn't a big piece on that defense, more like a solid contributor.
And actually, I should point this out about that whole stat, because most of the time when he was in Denver, it wasn't even really the defense's fault for why they continuously lost to Mahomes. It was because, well, you had Pat Shurmur running his offense, so that's not gonna do you any good. But this is a solid team.
Mm-hmm.
Blew way past my expectations, and they have one element I think could very well help them, and that's the element of revenge. They have they know what happened 2 years ago, and some people say it was holding, some people say it wasn't, but they got a lot of players that want to get back at Kansas City.
And not just that. Remember last year, they beat the Chiefs. They thought it was their Super Bowl, and then they just massively collapsed after that point, and it just destroyed their season. So they're looking for revenge in that regard as well.
It should be fun to see how they go in and try to clap back at them.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. It is time to see which one of us will jinx this game works. It is time for us to make our picks for who will win the Super Bowl, who will be the Super Bowl champions at the end of the year. And Tree, since you're the guest, I will let you get the first swing on this.
Let's be honest here. It's going to be the Chiefs. I don't want to say it, but it's going to be one of those close games, last minute field goal, or especially Harrison Butker. Oh, dude, the salt would be coming out like crazy about that for obvious reasons. But it's it's Chiefs all the way. And I hate to say it, but yeah.
I've learned that the football gods have hated us for the last 2 years. I think they decided to be merciful when they gave us that Rams Bengals Super Bowl, but I guess the punishment was having to see the Chiefs do this. And the one constant I've seen in the previews to this game is that people are saying it's going to be a really good, high scoring game.
It's going to be low scoring. I mean, the Chiefs like to play a low scoring game.
And I mean, the big key for the Chiefs, in my opinion, is stop Saquon Barkley. I think it's going to be a case of, I think it's stop Saquon Barkley. You'll stop the Eagles.
Of course.
But ultimately, I think the football gods' hatred of us will rule the day. I have the Chiefs winning in 9-3 in the most boring slop of a football game I will ever watch.
I mean, it's just going to be one of those games. It's going to be the game we deserve, and it's just everyone's just going to be tweeting on Twitter. It's like, why am I watching this? Because you do. You can turn the TV off anytime, but you're not, because you want to see the commercials that aren't going to do anything and the halftime show that's probably going to be overblown. Unless Kendrick Lamar just goes off about Drake the entire time, then it's just the best Super Bowl ever.
I need him to sing Not Like Us at least five times. I need the entire crowd. I need the entire crowd.
Oh yeah, it's just going to be it would just be just 10 minutes of him roasting Drake. It's just like best Super Bowl ever. There it is.
But yeah, I don't expect the commercials to be good. They haven't been good in like 6 years.
Probably later, but earlier, but who knows?
but it is whoever. The point is though, the point is though, whoever wins, America loses. So
Yeah,
with that,
it is. It really is.
with that
It's a
being
shame,
said,
but
it's what we deserve, isn't it? Though.
it is. It is. We get what we deserve, sadly.
All right. And with that, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary friends, my name is Andrew Rouse for Urinating Tree. That is my take.